there! I'm Geraldine Cass. I'm the owner of Freedom Test Prep and the creator of Mastering the SAT video course. Welcome to the math section. So there's a few things that I want to talk to you about by way of introducing the math section. So let's start with the structure of the test. So first of all, there are two math sections on every SAT exam. There's section 3 and 4, and they look slightly different from each other. So section 3 is a shorter section, and it consists of 20 questions. It's also a no calculator section, so no calculator usage here. There are 15 multiple choice questions and 5 what they call student produced response questions, or grid-ins. Those are the ones that you grid in, you just bubble in the answers. There are no answer choices given to you. That takes 25 minutes. I might have said that. Okay, section 4 is a longer section. That takes 55 minutes. And you are allowed to use your calculator in section 4. And that has 38 questions. So there are 30 multiple choice and then 8 grid-ins or student-produced response questions. So 55 minutes. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is that it's really important when you practice math, both for this course and afterwards when you're doing practice exams on your own, that you either print out the test or have the book in front of you. You want to be working on a hard copy, on actual paper. I don't want you looking at the screen and taking scratch paper and writing down your answers, because that's not what happens on the official. So the official day, you have the paper in front of you, so you should simulate that experience as often as you can. And even if you have the book in front of you, you don't want to have scratch paper because you're not allowed scratch paper on the day of. So make sure you get used to writing all your notes and everything, doing all your work on the test itself. Okay, so now I want to talk about general tips. And if you purchase the whole course and you've already seen some of reading and writing, I'm going to do the same thing here that I've done there, which is this. Okay, this is the conversion table. This is from Test 8, and this is going to help you to determine how many questions you need to get right and how many you're allowed to get wrong based on the score that you want. So I highly recommend that you do this for your test so you understand what your baseline is. And as your score goal increases, then obviously your numbers will increase along with it. But let's say you're starting with a math score of 500 and you want to get to 600. So I'll show this to you again and hopefully you can see it. You'll go down to where it says math section score, okay? And you're going to go to the right half of the page, and you're going to look until you find 600. Then you're just going to go over one column to the left to where it says the raw score. I look here, and on this test, I have to get 36 questions right. Now that's 36 out of a total of 58 questions. That's not that many questions. So that means I can get 22 questions wrong, which is a lot of questions. And it's really nice to know that you have this kind of leeway on the test. 22 questions you can get wrong, and you're going to get your happy score. Whereas in school, all right, so half of 58 is 29. So 36 questions is just a few more than half. And if you got half right, well, that's failing. So you're either at like a D or something in school, but on the SAT you'd be getting a 600. That would be a wonderful score if you're starting at 500. So make sure that you do this, because when you know you're allowed to get 22 wrong, you can relax. If you see, let's say, 5 questions in a row that you're like, oh, I don't know how to do it, you're not going to freak out, because you're going to say, hey, I've got 22 questions I can get wrong. So if I can't get these 5, I'm just going to make sure that I get a bunch of other ones right. And then, still I have 17 other questions I can get wrong. This is not a problem. Okay? It's really important for stress reduction to understand that concept. Okay, so now let's move away from the structure and from scores, and let's just talk about actually doing the math. And what are some tips? Well, I've got a million tips. A lot of them are going to be covered in the videos, obviously, but to come. But for this intro video, I want to tell you that, well, first of all, just knowing this stuff about the conversion table is already going to increase your score without learning math at all. Okay, and now I'm going to give you some other tips that will help you increase your score without really doing math in any way. So it's just about approach. All right, so the first thing I want to say is write down everything. Don't do math in your head. All right, I can't emphasize this enough. I'm always admonishing my students, do not do math in your head. Pen on paper, I say to them. First, write it down, then you can go to your calculator, if you're in the calculator section, of course. But you don't want to work right onto your calculator either. You want, in other words, a trail so that you can see your work in case you make an error, which you will. You should assume that you're going to make careless errors. It's just normal. If you assume that you don't, or if you don't even think about it, you could be making that assumption, in which case you're probably making a ton of careless mistakes. And the first thing to do in math is take care of your mess. Take care of those careless mistakes. Clean them up. Know what they are. Get to know yourself. Get to know the mistakes that you make. For example, a common mistake is anything having to do with a negative, right? As soon as you see, whether it's a subtraction sign or a negative in front of a parentheses, but that you have to distribute out to every item in the parentheses, classic place to make a mistake, right? So the more you write down on the paper, the better. And I'll get into details with each video how you can do that. This includes, let's say, a problem that says, there's a football field. If I was reading that problem, I would stop, I would draw a rectangle. There's my football field. What else? What about the football field? Now it's going to say the sides, and then I can draw what the sides are, right? So write everything down, and this is actually a good segue into my next point, which is chunk out the problems. Don't read an entire problem, particularly if it's long. Read a tiny bit of a problem, one piece of information, then pen on paper or pencil on paper, right? Write it down right away. When you do that, your brain can process one piece of information very easily, right? It no longer becomes a big problem that you have to then tease apart piece by piece. Okay, it's a much better approach. Okay, what else? Here's a good one. You want to make sure to, when you do the problem, let's say you've finished and you've solved for X, you want to go back and reread the question. Every time, go back and reread the question. Not the whole problem, just the question at the end that tells you what you need to solve for. If you solve for X and you got X is 5, they're not necessarily asking you to solve for X. What if they're asking you to solve for X plus 1? And the answer was 6. And you could have gotten that, had you read it again, you could have gotten it in 1 second. But you forgot and you picked 5. And lo and behold, 5 is in the answers. Which brings me to my other point, which is that the test makers know, they have forethought all the mistakes that you could make. Okay? They are ready for you, and you need to be ready for them. So they've thought, okay, what kind of careless mistakes could you have made? Let's put those in the answer and see. So if you're not on the lookout, you'll be like, hey, I got 5 as my answer, and there's 5 in the answers. And you pick it, and you feel confident. You feel like, oh, I know I got that one right. In the meantime, you didn't. Okay? So you really have to watch yourself in that way. Okay, what else can I say? Here's something. You want to be giving your brain a moment to process the information. So this is like 2 points in one. The SAT is kind of famous for, in math, looking harder than it is. When you actually begin to unwind the problems, you're like, oh, is that all it is? Oh, that's so easy. I didn't know. I couldn't see that, but now I see it. This is an extremely common experience. This happens with every single one of my students. So what you want to do is understand first that the problems, many of them anyway, are going to look unfamiliar. They're not presented necessarily in the way that you learned in school. So rather than looking at it saying, uh-oh, I don't know how to do it, and then panicking, just take a breath, take a beat, and look at it and allow your brain to just allow the wheels to turn for a few seconds. Take a beat. Allow your brain to process the information. Chances are pretty good that you're going to come up with something. But if you expect immediate reaction and you don't get it, and then you're like, oh no, I can't do it. Either you're going to just panic and psych yourself out, and then your brain freezes and then you can't do the next 5 problems, or you just skip it when you could have gotten it and you move on. You wasted a point. Okay, so that's important. And I want to emphasize again, I know I just said it, but I'm going to say it again. The math problems look harder than they are. Now, you do need to have some basic chops. Like, you need to know how to solve algebraic problems. The test is mostly algebra. So if there's some basic skills that you don't have, you need to handle them. You need to really make sure that you have those basic skills. I will take you through many of them, but it's not a basic math course that I'm teaching. It's an SAT math course. So there are some assumptions that I make that you know how to do. And you can always bolster that if you see on the video, like, oh, I forgot how. If I'm not going through it as completely as you need, then you can just go online and look for a lesson somewhere. Okay. What else do I need to tell you? Maybe just a little bit about the course itself and what the other videos are going to look like, because they're not like this one. You're actually not going to see my face again until the outro, until the very ending video, the final bit of advice that I have for you, when you'll see my face. Other than that, you're basically seeing a whiteboard. You're going to be seeing, which is the screen. And then you'll see my work. I'll be writing on it, and I will have bullet points. So what you should do is obviously have the test in front of you that we're working on, and write down exactly what I write down to work through the problem, and then write down the bullet points. Those are for you to help you take good notes. Okay, but between the two of them, you should be good. And obviously the benefit of the video is you can always stop the video, review it, go back, go forward, right? You can play with it as you need to. If you need to hear something twice, hear it twice. Do what works for you. Okay, I think that's pretty much what I've got. I think those are all my, my initial points. I'm just going to quick check my notes here. Yeah, I covered everything. I guess one last point I would make is there's a lot of math concepts. And there's no way that I can cover every single kind of question that they might offer, because it's kind of an endless process. But there are very clear patterns on the SAT. So on every test is very heavily algebraic. And I can give you, there are always fractions on the test. There's always exponents. There's always a slight bit of trig. Right, and like that. There's a little bit of geometry. So it's hard to know exactly what's going to be on the test, but there are always the same concepts that they want you to know. And I cover that. And I also cover all kinds of things. I cover, the super difficult questions and the regular questions that you can expect on every test. And I tell you which ones I'm doing at the time. So you can make your own decision. For example, let's say there's a super hard question. I'm going to tell you, this is a super hard question, and you don't have to do it unless you're shooting for a perfect score. And you get to choose. There is leeway. You have the power to say, I choose not to do this question, and I'm doing it, and I'm not going to feel bad about that because it's actually a wise choice. Because if I choose immediately not to do it, I'm not wasting time trying to do something that's really out of my league, and I'm going to get it wrong anyway. So now I've forfeited a point and wasted time, right? So you get to, but don't worry about that now. I'm going to cover all of that in the videos. Anyway, I'm signing out. Have a fun time with math, and remember, it really is easier than you think. So give it a chance. Enjoy. Bye-bye.